Good morning and welcome to yet another legal translation module presented to you by your teacher Ahmed. In this lesson, I talk about negligent tort. Now, tort is a law that is not really seriously taken in Iraqi Kurdistan and in other Middle Eastern countries, for that matter. Tort itself, if I were to translate it, would be in Arabic as, or it would be translated to al-mas'uliyat taqsiriyya, um, or gemasid ber Sorry, my Kurdish tends to be really bad when I have elongated syllables. So negligent tort, as I said, is when a person or a company or an organization does not take its responsibilities seriously. Okay, that's tort. I mean, tort is when a person or organization or any sort of party does not take its responsibilities in consideration. It has two types. There is negligent tort and there is intentional tort. Intentional tort is when let's suppose you have a dog and you do not put a leash on the dog's head. So what happens is that sometimes this dog could what you call it, the leash could run loose and the dog could run away and ending up harming people on the streets. This is intentional because you intentionally did not tie the dog to a leash in which stops the dog from running away. A leash, sorry, not a leash. Leash is something else. A leash. Yes. What else? So when we talk about negligent tort, it means it's a sort of a tort that is not intentional. It's not intentional. Negligent tort, as we said, or المسؤولية التقصيرية, is when, let's suppose you're cleaning a place and you do not put a sign that says be careful, the ground is slippery, as it says here. You see right here, this one says caution, slippery area, so that the people who are walking around that area know that this place right here is wet, which could lead to them slipping and causing harm to themselves. And that's negligent tort if you do not put the sign. If you do not put the sign, that's negligent tort. But it's not like you intended for people to slip and cause harm to themselves. It's not like you really want that, but it's just you were negligent. You didn't think about it. Some of the things that happen, some of the vocabularies that are often used in tort law is liability. Liability is مسؤوليات بر. So if I put it in a sentence, I would say I am liable for a compensation. As يمستحقي تشتمه تعويض كمان. I'm liable for a compensation. Or you can say I have no liability in this misdemeanor. Okay. Anku, you can say, as I said in translation, منشه بر پرسیارتی مسئولیت نینه ادوه کریاره خرابده. Misdemeanor. A misdemeanor is something which is less than a crime. It's an offense. It's an offense. Still, it's an offense, but it's not like a crime. It's not a grave crime. So that's liability. Next is reasonable person standard. If you remember when we talked about marriage, and one of the conditions of marriage is having a reasonable person. It means a person who knows what they're doing. So in negligent tort, if suppose you are walking on a slippery road, a slippery ground, and you know that the ground is slippery, and you fall and you cause harm to yourself, in this case, you are a reasonable person, and the other party which cleaned the ground, and now the ground is wet, is not liable for you harming yourself because you're a reasonable person and you know that the ground is wet. So you need to take precautions, but you did not take precautions. So what happened was that you cause harm to yourself, and the second party is not liable. as I said, reasonable person in Kurdish کسی دیگهشتی، کسی عاقل، کسی عاقل دار. مقصد اوه کسی که کود زانیتن خرابی باشید تشتکی. negligent tort دا انکو بر کیماسید بر پرسیاری دا بيكو نيت يعني دا نيت دا نبيدن it's negligent tort it's not intentional او وكي تو تشتكي دكي مثلا دي تعرضك شيش تعرضك باقش كر ايش تو عرضه طرا تو چه اشارات نادانيه ويريك واف عرضه هنيه طرا چه بي كسا كتويا رو بچيت وبحليسيت اخو بيشينيتن اگر او كسا عاقل بود زانيت عرضه طرا في حالته تو نه مسؤولي you don't take liability you're not liable for their actions تو مسؤوليتي نورجري بس اگر كسا بيتن يعني في حالته ده او كسا مسؤوله خلت يخو. This right here, as it says duty of care. Duty of care means every party, every organization, every person has a responsibility or for duty of care. It means they need to, when they do something, make sure that it doesn't cause any repercussions. It doesn't cause any aftermath. It's called duty of care, and it's on the person who is conducting something, who's doing something, to make sure that the duty of care is taken care of. Duty of care awaku waki tu karegi dikey tu pshewaki cha bikey pshewaki kuchu tu eki binch khalati nehene kerin pishti كاريتا خلاص بيتن بونو منا كي مقولتي اسرابم مثلا عردكي بشم دبيت اسوي عرديجي الزها كم تاكو چه مسئولیت بوم چه نبنش کریاره کی چه ببیدنش اگری شش نام بوی عردی بینی duty of care جیک کی بیژن کو تا ارکی پاراستنه ته ارکی پاراستنه duty of care. But next it says that every person, property owners in this case, they have not acted with prudence. Prudence is related to duty of care. Prudence is related to duty of care. It means you either take, if you're a prudent person, it means you take these things into consideration. You are seriously considering things like duty of care. If you're imprudent, it means you do not take it seriously. Okay? So if I already translated in Kurdish, I guess كما كردي prudent يعني أو كسا أيكو عقلانة تصرفت يتن دفيري دا ما قد reasonable person أو كسا أيوي تشتكي بسريويت يتن prudent أو كسا أيوي تشتكي يتن prudent ما قد duty of care أو كو أركي سر مليوي كو تشتكي بشبكة پاراستن یه پاراستی بهتر کردن و حالتی دوید توی prudent بی تو کسی که چه بی حکیمانه بی که دوید چی که دکوبزانی او کو تو عرض کتار کرد دوید توی عردی حشکی بس دوید نفسی دمی دا اگر تا prudent بود تو کسی که prudent بود که تو عقلانه افشته کردی عرض زها کردی بس هر نشانه که بجنیت wet or the land is still wet sorry not the land the ground is still wet a reasonable person should understand that the land is still wet. Sorry, I keep on saying land. The ground is still wet, and they need to be careful when they're walking on it. They're a reasonable person. If something like this happens, then it's still not the fault of the person. خو اگه افشتکی واسه چه بود؟ تو کسی که بگم گویی تو بعقلانه تا ارکی خوی پاراستنه تبجه اینای. و کسی کات پشتینگه عرض لولو زهانه ببو. وتصرف شو هليسي أوريشك بيجي بتوي حالة ده ناكي بتأثر صويته شكي تعمد نفسه كده شكي أو كسكي reasonable person he's a reasonable person they're a reasonable person and they take responsibility for their action وأود بنا سبب بيجي تشتي هتشتكي بسريع وانا بيتن أود بنا أجري أود بنا عفوا مسؤول الشر كاريخو. Next here when we talk about harm وكيف محسي harm كين أنكو أزار we have two sorts of causes. There is actual cause and then there is proximate cause. مدود شيتين يتأجري دمريدانك شيت بيتن. We have actual cause and we have proximate cause. Actual cause is the main cause that led to an action, that led to a result. Actual cause بيشتغل أجري سركي بويا أجري كاركي أنجي كرياركي أنجي سربوركي. بين actual cause اگر سرکی proximate cause اگر نیزیکری درسته یعنی چه اگر نیزیکری معناته او کو نیزیکترین اگر کو ببیته يعني أجري في سربوري. Let me give you an example. Suppose there's this lady who's walking in high heels and her high heel is damaged, okay? There's something wrong with her high heel. She has a broken high heel, as it says here. And she's walking on a slippery ground. After walking on the slippery ground, she ends up falling on the floor and breaking her heel. In this case, we have two causes. We have an actual cause and a proximate cause. How do we determine which one is the actual cause and which one is the proximate cause? The proximate cause, in this case, is secondary to the actual cause. The lady, if she was walking with broken heels, chances of the broken high heels causing damage on a wetland are further than the wet grounds causing injury or causing slipping and falling of the person are less likely than the cause of walking in broken high heels. Walking in broken high heels can lead to falling in any scenario, in any setting. But walking on slippery ground could potentially lead to falling, but what can further exacerbate the falling of the person is walking in a broken high heel. So in this case, the actual cause is the lady walking in the broken high heels, and not really the wet ground. Let me say this in Kurdish as well. ما قلت اگری سرکی actual cause و proximate cause او اگری نزیکتر راجی نزیکری مرم جی چه بونو مناجن که کیو هی کعبه ویش کستیه والسر عردکی طار پریبت شو ادوی حالتی دا ادی چازم کشکشوانه actual cause اگری سرکیه و proximate cause آن اگری نزیکریه که نزیکترین اگر کن بشین چه بیت اوجیک اگری هنده بیتن اگه دم زانین اگر جنک کعبه شکستی بیتن چه عردی بیتن چانس اکیه هی کوب کویتن و خبرین دار بکتن بله پرایوتشون سر عرضه تر چانس اکیه بلکی پوتنشل طبعا کو چه بیتن اف کسا بکویتن چه بیت نکویتن جبر هنده ام ده بیجینه actual cause اگر یه چه بود وریدا یه سرکی کعبه شکستی بود proximate cause اگر یه نزیکر چه بود ابو که هر دیه طربو. And this is why we say the actual cause and the instance which is given in this passage, this legal memorandum. Of course, I apologize, I didn't say what a legal memorandum is in the beginning. A legal memorandum is when you take information about a person and then you give it to the superiors and their legal department to see into a case. legal memorandum كما قلت مذكرة قانونية وكو معلومات كامتين عامتين النفسين السر سربورا كياسایی بشین یه تنه تقدیم کردن بو بشین یاسایی دا کو که بین چهار سری بیتا کردن بو وی سربورا یاسایی. Yes, so finally, in case a person was injured because of negligent tort, they need to get compensation. اگر هاتو چو کسک فعلا من عرض شیشتو من نظها کرلا و کسک حلی سید سردار و من چنی شانجی بو ندانا بیتن no sign, I have put up no signs. In this case, I have to give compensation to the reasonable person. اگر هاتو چو کسک سر عردی با پرویت شوی طربو من چنی شان ندانا بو من لو حشک جینا کر بیتن و اکید بیجن to live it as compensation. I need to pay the compensation. Live it as تعويض كيف دم كسي. Finally, there is duty or breach of duty. Breach of duty, as I said, if you need to have duty of care. You need to have duty of care, and you need to act with prudence. You need to be a prudent person. If you take into consideration duty of care, and you're a prudent person. And if something happens to a reasonable person, then you have not breached the duty of care. You haven't done that. It's, as I said, it's on the reasonable person because they were not careful enough to see that the land is, sorry, again, I always say land. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Maybe because of the previous lessons I was talking about scarce land. Sorry about that. And I am losing my train of thoughts. So again, if you've acted with prudence and you've taken into consideration duty of care, if a reasonable person walks on a ground that is still wet, and if something happens to me, it's not your fault. You have not breached the duty of care. It's their fault. They were not prudent enough. They were not careful enough. Breach of duty أو خرقة شتشتي مجوتي كو مسؤوليته تبشتشتي duty of care مجوتي بر برسيوريته شتشتيش باراستنه آجي شاف دریه اگر هاتو چو تا وکی من نمونه بنادی گوتی تعرض زهاكر باش بس هر پیچه که هندک نشانه تاراتیه تدامین و کسک بسر ریوه چو کسی عاقله کسک زانی تنکو پیچه که عردی طارد وید اثر ریوه نچم ادویری دا و حلیسی و کتو بو اصابك چه بود ویری دا سویچه نینه you have not breached the duty of care ده خرقه breach یعنی خرق آنجا کردیم بینید نبجه اینانا چه دشتی بر پرسیاریت یا چه دشتی یا چاف دیریه. With that being said, thank you very much. I'm going to send you this passage, which is a legal memorandum. I'm going to put it on Moodle, and I'll kindly ask you to not interpret it, to translate it into either Arabic or Kurdish. And thank you very much, and I'm truly sorry for taking too long again with every lesson. Recently I've been taking too long of the electronic lesson. I apologize, and hopefully this won't happen again. I hope it's not an empty promise. Take care and goodbye.